Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. It's David Schlotthauer here, excited to present you all my first winter 2024-2025 forecast. So to start off this video, here's a look at the latest INZO, and right now we are currently in a cold neutral phase right now. We're not declared in a La Nina just yet, but that's going to be changing by the time we go into September, October, November, and into December to start off the winter season when this forecast was officially based off of that. So we can see right now in the Eastern Pacific, we do have that cool sea surface temperature anomalies that are parked over basically the Central and Eastern Pacific, and we can see it down here too on the actual sea surface temperatures right now. So definitely not like we had last year where we were in a El Nino pattern. Now instead we are seeing cold La Nina conditions in place. So the next slide we're looking at here is the latest CFS. So now most of you are probably wondering what our winter forecast is going to be looking like across much of the United States, including for Alaska. Well, this is a look at the latest CFS model, the climate forecasting system, looking at the 500 millibar jet stream for January, February, March. That's on the bottom left side of the screen. And then on the top right side of the screen is the CANSIPS model. This is basically the Canadian version of the climate model that the United States basically uses. And they are both indicating that we're going to have a variable polar jet stream over the Pacific and across the United States with a much weaker subtropical jet. Unlike last year, we had a very amplified subtropical jet cutting across much of the United States, and that is why a lot of us, including Canada, were much warmer than average overall because of that jet stream. But now this go around, we're going to see more of a polar jet that is going to be more active over the region, which will bring a lot of much cooler temperatures. In fact, speaking of that, here's a look at the temperature outlook according to our two climate models. Again, the CFS on the left side, the CANSIPS model on the right side. And this is for January, February, and March. So for the next 3 months. And we can see over Canada and across the northern tier of the United States, we do have cooler temperatures that are likely during this period. Now, the CANSIPS model is a little bit more aggressive with its forecast, indicating a much sharper dip in temperatures. So well below average, perhaps a very, very, very brutal cold winter is on the way, perhaps over if you're in Minnesota, if you're in Wisconsin, versus the deep south and the southwest. Going to likely be much warmer this winter than what you're typically used to. But of course, we have not hit the winter predictability barrier yet. So we will see if this either downtrends or uptrends with the cooler temperatures. So our precipitation outlook for January all the way through March for our peak winter months are as follows. The CFS on the left side and the CANSIPS on the right side like before. We could see green colors indicating above average rainfall chances are likely to spread across the Pacific Northwest into the northern plains, and then another slug of above average anomalous precipitation likely to take hold on the CFS model over the Great Lakes and over the Midwest and the Deep South, including for the southeastern U.S. Now, below average precipitation likely is expected over California and the Four Corners, including for portions of Texas. Now, versus that on the CANSIPS, also indicating some dry conditions, but you can see here, no above average, only across the Pacific Northwest. The odds are higher there that you're going to have a pretty wet, stormy winter with a lot of snow, gusty winds, a lot of these powerful Pacific systems cutting across the polar jet in that area. So now, as far as the seasonal forecast goes, you all are wondering, what is NOAA saying about this? So this is the January through March forecast, and this was issued nearly almost a month ago. It really doesn't matter at this point because this is pretty well drawn out. You can see below average chances for temperatures across the Pacific Northwest, including for the upper Midwest and the northern tier. See this blue here, indicating that the chances of below average temperatures are there over the above average temperature chances that are across the southeast, the deep south, and the eastern seaboard. Now, there are equal chances over California and Nevada, and that's because, again, if we go back and look, we can see not as aggressive on the CANSIPs with our temperature anomalies versus the CFS. So there is a tilt here between either it's not going to be a warm winter or it's going to be a warm winter, and that's why we're seeing this on NOAA. Our precipitation outlook from the Climate Prediction Center of NOAA does illustrate basically with what we talked about. Again, above average across the Great Lakes and the upper Midwest, above average chances for the northeastern U.S., and also above average precipitation chances for the Pacific Northwest. And of course, these chances here definitely asking for really dry conditions and warm conditions across the deep south, such as Florida, Texas, Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana, including for Georgia, and of course for California, except California is on the tightrope for equal chances for both temperatures and also for precipitation on this outlook. So now let's move forward and let's look at my outlook. What are my personal thoughts of what the temperatures are going to be? So now I'm going to do this as detailed as I can. I spent a lot of time. I spent nearly a week making these graphics. So I really hope you all like these graphics that I did create here off of Microsoft. Oh no, Adobe PowerPoint, that is. 2024. So you can see if you guys are in the lightest orange, this is where I am putting you all at a 33 to 40% chance for above average temperatures. I forgot to add actually the wording up here, but just take my word, this is temperature outlook here, and then we'll be looking at my precipitation outlook. So the areas further south are seeing a 40 to 50% chance for above average temperatures. Again, these are chances. These are not intensities necessarily. And then when we go into our next slide, we can see further south, there is a 50 to 60% chance for southern Texas, for the deep south, including for Florida, to have above average temperatures. Now, there's another zone that I have introduced for southern Florida, central Florida, and also for southern Texas and southern Louisiana that has a 60 to 70% chance of seeing temperatures that are going to be above average. So this is where we have the highest chances of some really dry and warm temperatures for this winter. Not much Arctic outbreaks, I don't think, are going to be spilling as far south this go around, especially since we're not seeing a Godzilla La Nina like we did in 2011 and like we had recently just a couple of years ago. So this is what that looks like. So now, who's going to have normal chances for either above or below average temperatures? Well, the area in gray here, this is the gray strip that I drew up from California all the way into portions of the northern Rockies, down across the Midwest into the southeastern U.S. You have equal chances for temperatures to be either above or below average. And then when we go to our next slide, we can see here that I drew up, there is a 33 to 40% chance that your temperatures are going to be below average in this area. When we go forward even more, there is a 40 to 50% chance in the darker blue color shading. So this is class 2 over these areas. And when we go into class number 3, there's a 50 to 60% chance of seeing temperatures below average. Okay, and then look at this. A 60 to 70% chance for the months of December, January, February, and March. But really in January is when winter is going to really be brutal up here across the Great Lakes. And that's where you have the highest chances for seeing those temperatures below average. So this is my overall thinking here, extrapolating from the chances. So if you're in the blue, you're likely below average temperatures. If you're in the gray, you're equal chances, and if you're in the darker orange and red colors, you're likely to see above average temperatures. That's my thoughts on the temperature. But what about on the precipitation? That's this green and brown color that you see here. So the areas that I have highlighted here denote a 33 to 40% chance for precipitation that is going to be below average. If we go to our next one, it's 40 to 50. And then if we go to our next class here, there's a 40 to 50% chance that areas like Texas, southern Oklahoma into the southeastern U.S. will have definitely below average. And then look at this, a 40 to 50% chance that I've highlighted you all underneath that darkest brown color. Oops, I made a little bit of a issue here. Sorry about that. This is actually a 50 to 60% chance. Let me kind of scum that all off there so you guys don't get confused. So there's a 40 to 50% chance, or a 50 to 60% chance that you're going to have below average. There we go. I fixed it there. So in our next slide here, equal chances in gray. That's, again, neither above or below. And then when we look at our precipitation chances, a 33 to 40% chance of seeing above average. And when we go to our next couple of slides, you can see that there, a 40 to 50% over the Pacific Northwest and also across the Great Lakes region. So looks like it's going to be a really brutal, snowy winter for the Great Lakes. We're on that in my overall forecast. It's definitely not going to be one of those warmer ones that you saw last winter because of we had El Nino last winter. Now we're going to flip our phase here into La Nina. So likely above for the Great Lakes, we mentioned that. And also for the Pacific Northwest, likely above and then likely below for the Deep South. So now, are you all excited for my 2024-2025 snow amount forecast? Yeah, this took quite some time. If you guys are wondering how long it took to make these maps, this took personally about 7 hours, 7 to 8 hours just to hand draw this. So you guys can give me a round of applause in the chat if you guys do like this map that you're about to see. So the areas that are going to see about a half an inch to an inch of snow are all in gray here. Don't freak out. This is going to get upgraded more and more as we go through each slide, similar to with what we did with my temperature and precipitation forecast with my outlook there. When we go to the next slide, there's a 1 to 2 inch range of snowfall forecasted. This is what I expect over across much of the United States. But when we go forward, 2 to 4 inches, that will cover much of Buffalo, Boston, if you're in Indianapolis, Chicago, Minneapolis, if you're in Salt Lake City, Portland, Seattle, definitely going to see 2 to 4 inches. This is really going to get higher. Here's a look at the darker blue colors. This is 4 to 8 inches of snow that is anticipated. And again, all of the areas darkened here in blue indicate maybe up to 8 inches of snow. You've seen 8 inches of snow. So now when we go forward now, by the way, the snowfall forecast runs all the way from December 1st all the way through April 1st. This is a little offset because sometimes we get late winters in the northern plains. So if you don't see 12 inches by February in this region, wherever you're located, don't freak out. It's going to come. All right, so 8 to 12 inches are expected over much of the U.S., of course. And then when we go forward, 12 to 16 inches. And then when we go forward again into our next slide, 16 to 24 inches. So we're looking at areas of 2 feet of snowfall in the areas highlighted in Class 2 pink. And then Class 3 pink is 24 to 30 inches. This is getting up there to be more concerning for the winter season, especially over the Great Lakes. Wait until you see the snowfall totals up there. And in red, we have 30 to 36 inches of snow that is expected. So Buffalo, the Great Lakes region, that lake effect snow, I drew it up here really nicely, expecting to see quite a bit of snow. And then the 36 to 42 inch range is darker red here. So you can see, of course, the Northeast, of course, the Great Lakes region, really going to get blanketed by a lot of snow. And then we get into the 2-foot range, perhaps 42 to 48 inches across much of the northern Rockies, the Pacific Northwest, the Great Lakes region. That lake effect snow really going to be amplifying all that amount. And then, of course, for the extreme northeast, you're expecting to see possibly up to 48 inches. That's 2 feet, folks, if you're specific to convert that over. And then the kind of the pink red colors are 48 to 54 inches. That's the highlighted area that you see here. Again, I know it's a little hard to see here. Try to make this as simple and easy to look at. You know, but it's hard. It's kind of hard to make these maps. So you can see here up to 54 inches of snowfall is expected, especially for the northern Rockies and the Great Lakes. Boy, that lake effect snow is going to be really a problem. And then the next area, I know it's, again, some of these numbers are overlapping, but this area, the class, the other pink color here is 54 to 60 inches. That does include the Great Lakes. So Buffalo can get up to 60 inches of snow this year. Chicago, again, not much, but if you're like, say, Kalamazoo, Michigan, you could see up to 60 inches of snow thanks to the lake effect snow and Grand Rapids there over Michigan. And then there's the next layer. Up to 66 inches of snowfall is expected over the northern Rockies. This is getting really concerning. And then, of course, over the Great Lakes region. And then some areas like Buffalo could see up to 72 inches of snowfall thanks to the lake effect snow. Again, lake effect snow prone areas here could see up to 72 inches. The northern Rockies and Montana and northern Idaho could see up to 72 inches, and the Cascade Range, really concerning there. So now I'm going to take off the color map here, and we're just going to focus on these areas, especially over here over the Rockies. These areas, you could see, and I messed up there. Okay, sorry about that. So this area, you might see up to about 84 inches, this color red area. And then let's go forward. Darkest red colors here might up to 90 inches of snowfall, so some blips here. And then when we go up again, 90 to 96 inches for, say, Montana and Idaho, and also for Washington. And then it goes up even more. What about 102 inches in the bright, or kind of the lavender purple color? And that includes for Washington over here. And then guess what? Let's go forward. 102 to 114 inches, just only in a few spots here, seeing the most snow possible this winter. And then look at this, 114 to 126. Now we're getting up there in over 10 feet of snowfall, 10 to 12 feet perhaps in the higher peaks here of the Cascades, like northeast of Seattle, and also for some of the Rocky Mountains of Montana and Idaho. And then last but not least on this layer, we have 126 to 136 inches. This is alarmingly high for a few areas that are circled in red. So if you live, hypothetically, if you have a cabin up here, boy, oh boy, you're going to be snowed in for sure. You're expecting 136 inches. Possibly some areas could even see over 150, 175 inches of snow throughout this winter period. So get ready, buckle up, Buttercup, because it's going to be rough. So here's a look at the finished product. So yeah, all my articity, all my drawing really paid off here. Hopefully you all like the color code map very much. This is not going to be updated anymore this year, probably, because boy, I would have to delete every layer and redraw it all up again. So this is probably a safe bet right here with what I'm forecasting for these higher elevations of the Rockies. Really going to take the brunt of the most snow. Versus if you're in the deep south, you're barely going to see a whole lot of snow, and especially over Los Angeles. I did not bother drawing in the San Gabriel Mountains, but some of these areas could see locally up to a foot of snow throughout the winter season. So now the grand finale, drum roll, folks, make your own drum roll. Can anyone take a wild guess with what these colors all represent? Are you all ready to see the grand finale overall prediction of what I think is going to happen? So in 3, 2, and 1, here we go. So here's a look at my overall 2024-2025 winter forecast. And so what I forecast here, now I did not have enough room to add every single word on here, so hopefully you all understand that. But you can see here in this dark kind of this kind of pink, hot pink color over northern Vermont, portions there of New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and northern Maine is blizzards. We're looking at massive blizzards, nor'easters expected across the eastern seaboard into the northeast, and then cold and wet conditions for the Carolinas with mild conditions for the South Carolina and portions of the southern portion there of North Carolina. Still looks to be somewhat wet though, so we're not expecting a historically dry winter there. Well, you guys are getting Debbie. You guys are getting a lot of rain, so actually a mild winter that's being drier than average won't hurt a whole lot. Warm and dry conditions for Florida, damp conditions for the deep south there, severe weather zone here with that tornado picture over Alabama, Mississippi, as well as portions of Georgia. And then, of course, the mountain snows, a lot of it. I mean, we're talking massive, possibly record-breaking snowstorms up here in portions of the Cascades. Cold and wet conditions over Seattle and Portland, Oregon. Dry conditions, unfortunately, likely for California. Now, this gray area is mountain snow, but we're going to look at a lot less mountain snow for California, possibly one of the lower amounts of snow that we've seen in quite a few years, perhaps unfortunately, thanks to this La Nina, this blocking pattern that's expected to develop once again. We're expecting chilly conditions over the high deserts and warm conditions in the high plains, warm and dry conditions over southern Texas with snowstorms across the Midwest. Now, for the northern tier, we're looking at a lot of lake effect snow, and that's because of the Arctic air is going to settle in by January and February especially. So we're looking at extreme Arctic outbreaks, especially for northern Minnesota, northern Wisconsin. Some Arctic blasts the further west you go, but it's going to be very cold this winter, folks. Nothing like you have ever experienced. Last winter and the winter before was rather warm. This winter is going to be a whole different setup. In fact, Montana had some of their coldest winter temperatures ever on record set back in January and February. We're probably going to repeat that again, I'm afraid, this coming winter. All right. So that is going to sum it up for this winter 2024-2025 forecast. If you did enjoy the colorful maps, the articity that I did put into this video with the great maps, please subscribe for more weather content such as live streams, weather updates, and much more on the YouTube channel. All right. But anyways, thank you all for tuning in, and I will be back with you more soon with more awesome weather content. Be sure to share, like, and subscribe.